We start the 5 with a big story tonight. High-end brothels reportedly happening in our own backyard.
The Department of Justice arresting 3 people for operating 2 in Virginia and 1 in Massachusetts. Some of their customers allegedly include elected officials, military officers, and government contractors. Fox 5's Tisha Lewis joining us live from McLean tonight. Tisha?
Well, an incredible story here in the latter that you mentioned are people who have security clearances. So obviously that adds an additional layer of concern, problematic to say the least. We are here at one of 2 addresses that the Department of Justice listed as where these brothels are occurring here on the 1500 block of West Branch Drive. Investigators say interested sex buyers reportedly provided employer information, references, and then booked appointments. 3 people are charged with conspiracy to coerce and entice to travel to engage in illegal sexual activity. Those people are 41-year-old Cambridge, Massachusetts resident Han Lee, 68-year-old Torrance, California resident James Lee, and 30-year-old Massachusetts resident Jen Mai Lee. They've been arrested and accused of operating these brothels in Boston and Virginia. The Department of Justice describes the operation as sophisticated and says sex buyers apparently include elected officials, high-tech and pharmaceutical executives, doctors, and more. In fact, again, we're told the so-called client list include government contractors who have security clearances. Charging documents indicate apparent sex buyers would go to brothels in Cambridge, Watertown, and right here in the Tysons area, and also in Fairfax on the 2900 block of District Avenue in the Mosaic District.
Sadly, it doesn't surprise me in the sense that if you read the announcement made by DOJ, what it does indicate is the fact that these individuals were allegedly very sophisticated in how they operated this particular brothel. I mean, they simply had connections overseas. They were able to bring mostly Asian women to the United States, and they were able to provide, their quote unquote services in a way that was almost undetectable.
The defendants are accused of enticing women, primarily Asian women, to travel to Massachusetts and also Virginia and engage in prostitution using high-end apartment complexes as the location. Many of these places charging rent for up to $4,000 a month. The defendants charging up to $600 per hour. The Department of Justice urging anyone in the community who may have any information about all this to contact them.
So y'all heard that news report right there, and you want to know what's so interesting? And shout out to Tawana Cook in my Discord, because she posted this, and I knew without the shadow of a doubt that the people that was involved with this was exactly the demographic I knew and assumed it would be, all because of 1 or 2 words, I should say: prostitution ring. When I saw that in the title, I automatically knew it's who it was. And then when I didn't even have to skim the article because it had their names right there. And not only did it have their names, but it had the picture that y'all saw right there with their licenses. And I said, yep, that pretty much confirmed it right then and there. You know what's so interesting is that Diane Yap that I went in that live stream that y'all saw, and shout out to everyone who was in attendance during the live and those who went and caught the playback for those who missed the live, is you have people like her that will sit up there and talk about black people all day, every day, or at least whenever they get the chance and opportunity to do so, but they will be definitely quiet about situations such as these. I am not in the least bit surprised about anything that I heard in this story, because between those parlors and the high prostitution rates in that community that they don't like to talk about, this should shock no one. Like, they had a whole prostitution ring that was pretty much damn near half the East Coast. They said the furthest one up was all the way in Massachusetts. They were bringing in all these Asian women to have a quote unquote good time with these polytrictions, which is another thing that doesn't surprise me too, because I swear whenever something like this happens, if you pulled up a list or a roster of all the names of people that's involved with this as far as the John quote unquote, you're gonna find at least one polytriction in there in the mix somehow, some way. I'm not in the least bit surprised by this at all. They said they flew sex workers from across the country and put them up in luxury apartments in Virginia, and then that's when they got busted. They said a high-end prostitution ring that reportedly required buyers to provide their employer information and references. Mind you, in the news clip, it said that they had security clearances, which means they were in the government, because that's pretty much the only way you can get a security clearance is if you are tied to the government. They should, if it was up to me, the people that was involved with that, those who had them security clearances, they would all get exposed. I'm talking about we putting out their names, what level of government they were in, what position they held, the whole nine. They should be more than put out there like that. Because here you are literally using your job's dime to spend money on loose women. Because it's most likely ain't coming out of their pocket. And then it pretty much says right there, you have to provide your work information to them in order to get quote unquote serviced. They said that they were operating in Massachusetts, and that's where all three of them have been charged for their involvement in what the FBI calls a sophisticated network of brothels. The ages of the individuals is 41, 68, and 30. And as you can see that with the three men with the license plates, that's how old each of them were. And they were over there in very nice areas. Like, these weren't run down spots. You wasn't finding them at like a Motel 6 or a Holiday Inn or a Red Roof Inn. They were in nice areas. So that means that they were getting paid really good money. They made sure to go over to places where there was money to be had. They said that this sex ring has been in investigation since 2020. This is a 3-year investigation they had going on here. They just finally had enough evidence this year or recently to bust them. That way they can have them tied up in so much litigation that they'll be up to their eyeballs in it. But I keep telling people this is a part of their culture. But people be trying to make it seem like it's not. It is. It really is. Whether they importing them from within or from across the pond. This goes on more commonly than people think. You can probably go on a Google and just start typing in prostitution rings involving Asians, and a whole bunch of stories will pop up. Of course, if you was to do it right now, this would probably be the most recent story that you would see. Now, what I found to be very interesting here is how the only person on here with the license plate that hasn't expired is the one on the bottom. His expires in 2027. The other two, theirs already expired. One's expired at the beginning of 2023 in January, and one's expired over a year ago. So 2 of them were even using licenses that were expired to get around. Unless these are, but I don't know why anyone will hold on to an old license anyway. It should have all just been renewed, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm not shocked in the least bit by anything that I heard in this video. Y'all are not shocked by anything either. But like I'm telling you, if you go and Google it, you will be surprised by how many brothels and parlors and happy ending spots you would find that is ran by them. I think one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, and I think it came out of an Atlanta brothel. I'm sorry, parlor. They call it a parlor, where they literally had these women, and some of them were underage minors, literally in a broom closet and was rotating them out like it was nothing. Whenever one John left and another one came in, they rotated one girl out and one woman out and rotated another woman in. It was literally a revolving door going on down there. And I think it did happen in Georgia. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. It was a pretty big deal when that happened. They literally had them sleeping in a broom closet. Do you know how small a broom closet is? So you can imagine what it was like having them all stay in there. And I'm sure, and I'm assuming that when they were done doing all of that, they just took all of them out and then brought a whole new crop of women in and did the same thing over again. And they kept doing it until they got caught. But yeah, there you go. Another story involving the so-called model minority doing so-called model minority things or extracurricular activities.